In the pre-dawn humidity of August 17, 1943, Technical Sergeant James McKenna crouched beneath the wing of a P-38 Lightning at Doadura Airfield. He watched Lieutenant Robert Hayes, just 23 years old, climb into the cockpit. Hayes checked his instruments with a nervous energy McKenna knew all too well. Today, he and his squadron would face 18 Japanese Mitsubishi Zeros, sent to intercept their morning patrol. This was Hayes' 7th combat mission. He had 0 kills. McKenna's hands, perpetually stained with grease, tightened around a wrench. He knew this aircraft, every cable, every rivet. The P-38 Lightning was an American Marvel twin engines, incredible speed at high altitude, and devastating firepower. But it had a fatal flaw, a weakness that had already claimed too many young lives. There was a slight slack in the control cables. It was almost imperceptible, just a fraction of an inch, but in a dogfight, that tiny delay in response time was a death sentence. The P-38 could never outmaneuver a Zero in a turning fight. The Japanese planes were lighter, more agile, and could execute tight turns faster than a P-38 could react. American doctrine was clear: use speed and altitude. Hit and run, but never ever get into a turning fight with a Zero. Hayes had tried to follow that doctrine on his previous missions, but each time, he was baited into maneuvers his aircraft simply couldn't execute fast enough. McKenna knew it wasn't pilot error. It was physics, amplified by that mechanical slack. A fraction of a second was all a Zero needed to get a lethal lead. And every morning, McKenna saw the consequences in the bloodied, battered planes that limped back to base or didn't return at all. His mind replayed a grim slideshow of lost pilots. Lieutenant David Chen from Sacramento, Captain William Morrison, who had 11 kills, and Lieutenant Thomas Parker, Hayes' closest friend. Each man had flown with confidence, trusting their training and their machine. And each had been betrayed not by their skill, but by that invisible flaw. 17 pilots in 6 weeks had been lost to the same silent enemy. McKenna had worked on all of their planes, meticulously checking every system. But even his perfection couldn't fix a problem that wasn't even in the manual. A delay that no one seemed to notice, except for him. The night before the mission, a desperate Hayes had sought out McKenna in the quiet of the hangar. His usual pilot bravado was gone, replaced by raw fear. "Can you make it turn faster?" he asked, his voice shaking. He didn't care about regulations or the risks of unauthorized modifications. He just wanted a chance to survive. Looking at the young man, McKenna felt the crushing weight of responsibility. Inaction meant certain death for Hayes. Any modification to the flight controls could get McKenna court-martialed. He promised to try. Under the cover of darkness, McKenna worked alone. He removed an inspection panel from the P-38's left boom and found the aileron control cable. Just as he suspected, there was about 3/8 of an inch of slack. He had a plan. From a salvaged aircraft, he'd taken a 6-inch piece of high-tensile piano wire. Using pliers, he bent it into a tight Z-shape, the sharp metal cutting into his fingers. Shoved into a cramped space inside the boom, with his flashlight trembling, he meticulously installed the wire as a makeshift tensioner. It took just 8 minutes. The slack was gone. Now, when the control stick moved, the ailerons responded instantly. He replaced the panel, wiped the blood from his hands, and stepped out into the tropical night. The risk was immense, but for the first time, Lieutenant Hayes might actually have a fighting chance. At dawn, McKenna watched as Hayes' P-38 thundered down the runway and lifted into the sky, joining a formation of 16 other aircraft. They were heading straight into enemy airspace. McKenna's stomach was a knot of anxiety. The first contact came at 13,000 feet over the Huon Gulf. For P-38s against 9 Zeros, Hayes, flying as number 3, rolled into a dive. He lined up a Zero in his sights, and as he moved the stick, something incredible happened. The plane responded instantly. There was no lag, no hesitation. The small piece of piano wire had transformed the aircraft. For the first time, pilot and machine moved as one. Hayes squeezed the trigger. Tracers lit up the sky, and he watched as his rounds ripped into the Zero. It exploded in a fireball. The shock of his first kill was shattered by incoming Zeros diving from above. Doctrine screamed at him to climb and run, but instinct, now armed with a responsive plane, took over. He pulled the stick hard, rolling the big P-38 around like a nimble fighter, a maneuver that should have been impossible. He caught another Zero, then a third. In just 30 seconds, he had 3 confirmed kills. The entire engagement lasted only 7 minutes. McKenna's secret modification, hadn't just saved a pilot's life. It had rewritten the rules of the fight. Captain Frank Mitchell, observing the battle from 15,000 feet, couldn't believe what he was seeing. He knew Hayes wasn't a prodigy, but his P-38 was rolling and turning faster than any lightning Mitchell had ever witnessed. It wasn't the pilot, it was the plane. After they landed, Mitchell cornered McKenna. The grease on the mechanic's hands was all the evidence he needed. McKenna confessed, explaining the piano wire tensioner. Mitchell didn't threaten a to marshal. Instead, he recognized its potential immediately and ordered McKenna to modify his aircraft and those of his wingman. Word of the McKenna tensioner spread quietly, a secret whispered between pilots and mechanics. Crew chiefs would install the wires for combat missions and remove them before official inspections. By early September, 40 P-38s across New Guinea were flying with the modification. The results were dramatic. Kill ratios, which had been 2 P-38s lost for every 0 destroyed, began to reverse. American pilots were now dominating the dogfights. The Japanese were baffled. Saburo Sakai, a legendary ace with 64 kills, reported encountering P-38s that performed impossible maneuvers, reversing turns faster than he'd ever seen. Their tried-and-true tactics were failing. To them, the aircraft looked identical. The small piece of wire hidden inside the boom remained invisible, yet it was rendering their combat experience useless. Soon, Japanese command issued a new directive: avoid engaging P-38s unless you have superior numbers. The hunter had become the hunted. By the end of September 1943, the statistics confirmed it. In the skies over New Guinea, the 11th Air Fleet had lost 38 aircraft to P-38s, while American losses dropped to just 22. The psychological impact was enormous. 2 years of Japanese air superiority had evaporated in a matter of weeks. Eventually, in October, Army Air Force inspectors noticed the inconsistent cable tensions and traced the anomaly back to McKenna's piano wire. Lockheed engineers flew in, tested the system, and confirmed it was both safe and highly effective. They recommended it for all future production models. By December, the new P-38J model rolled off the assembly line with a built-in tensioning system as a standard feature. James McKenna received no official credit. His contribution remained a secret, known only to the men whose lives he saved. Robert Hayes survived the war. He flew 63 missions, downed 11 enemy aircraft, and returned home to Iowa in 1945. He married his high school sweetheart and worked as a crop duster for decades. But every year, on August 17th, he would call James McKenna and thank him for saving his life. Captain Mitchell also survived, eventually becoming a colonel, and he told the story of the piano wire to every young officer he mentored. As for McKenna, he returned to California and opened a car repair shop in Long Beach. For 42 years, he was just a local mechanic, never speaking publicly about his pivotal role in the war. But to the pilots he saved, he was a legend. In 1991, a historian researching P-38 modifications stumbled upon references to the tensioner in old maintenance logs. He tracked down McKenna, who estimated his simple fix may have saved 80 to 100 lives. He never sought glory or recognition. He was just a man who saw a problem and refused to accept that nothing could be done. James McKenna passed away in 2006 at the age of 88. His obituary simply listed him as a mechanic who had served his country. But his story is a powerful reminder that innovation doesn't always come from the top down. It often comes from the front lines, from the hands and minds of those who see a problem up close and have the courage to act. In a hangar smelling of fuel and hot metal, with nothing but a piece of wire and a refusal to give up, a quiet mechanic changed the course of the air war in the Pacific. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more.